Sealing the outside edges of the tank, I'm going to be using DAP window, door, and siding. This is the black. The reason that I'm using this is not that it is of a better quality than the other silicones on the market. It is not. There are much better products you could use if you're making a tank from scratch, from glass or something like that. I'm using this because the actual color of the black matches the black that my epoxy is almost exactly, so it will be completely invisible. You want to do any place where the wood meets, where water could seep in. So inside corners, top corners, the edges up here where the actual supports would meet, any of these places you want to do up. Silicone work is pretty easy. You just cut the nozzle at a 45-degree angle, so you have a nice bead applicator. Go into your corner. You just want to very slowly and carefully draw out a bead. Once you have a good bead, you want to run your finger down it. So that you get a nice seam, you get rid of any air bubbles. Everything gets pressed into place pretty well. Next thing we want to do before we put in the window is any painting or staining that you're going to do on the outside, and then you want to seal the wood. So I'm going to be using English chestnut, and I'll be doing a wipe-on urethane stain. This part's pretty easy. You want to make sure that you're going to stir up your stain before you use it, because most of these, I don't know if you can see that line there, most of these have a horrible sludge layer on the bottom, and you really want to get those particles suspended so that you get an even color as you're working on it. So I don't know if you can tell, that's brightened significantly. For application, you can use any old rag. I've got some old shop t-shirts that are stained and gross that I've just cut up. I'm going to be using these. Application's super easy. Dip it and wipe it on. Urethane application is basically the same thing. Focus. It's like focusing on a spot of dirt in the back of the room or something. So once your tank is sealed, you're going to want to tape off an area where you're going to be putting your silicone, and you're going to scratch it up really well with sandpaper to make sure that you actually get some adhesion, because even the best stuff that you can get doesn't stick worth beans on smooth silicone. I'm going to be using the Gorilla Sealant, which, as I showed in the last video, sticks much, much better than anything else in the market. It's not strictly speaking food safe, but I'd rather have something that sticks well than something that I can leave a sandwich on. Most of these are perfectly fine once they're actually cured, so I'm happy to risk it. Similarly, in the tank, tape off wherever your silicone is going to be so that you get a nice line. This is especially important if you have multiple windows, and you're going to want to paper the front when you lay it down so that you don't screw up the finish. What I'm going to try to do is put a bead of silicone along the scratches here. I've only got a 1-inch overlay, so I've got to be careful how I'm going to line this up and how I'm going to lay it out, and then I'm going to have to manage to squeeze myself back into this box to put enough pressure on this window to get a good bond. But I'm going to go ahead and do that off camera, because it's awkward and weird and silly. The biggest thing you want to look for when you're doing this is these bubbles in here. You want to make sure that you have a good solid layer and that there's not bubbles running through from the edge to the outside, because if there are, you're immediately going to have a leak there. Part of what I've done to control that is I've run this tape here that when I peel off it makes a bare layer under here so that I can come back and reseal this edge with more silicone later. That way I know I'm going to have a good solid edge here. But if you are doing windows on each side, you want to make extra sure you get enough in here that you can pressure it out to get rid of those bubbles so that you're going to have a clear joint, because these things are very visible from the other side of the tank. Once you've had your window in for about 3 hours, you want to start removing your guard tape and removing the excess silicone. If you let it sit longer than that, you're going to have a monstrous time. You can see here the finished silicone surface. It's pretty easy. It's just like doing a tub or anything else. You squirt it into the corner, smooth it out with your finger. Ideally, you want to wear gloves. This stuff can be an irritant, but it doesn't really matter. This stuff's cured. You want to give it about 48 to 60 hours to really set up before you try to do a leak test, because when you're putting this in thicker, it will take longer to cure than the 24 hours that are listed on the jars. Doing a leak test, you probably only want to fill it up about halfway. Leave it there for, 12, 16 hours before you fill it up the rest of the way, because if you do a complete fill and then you find a small leak down in the corner here, you're going to run into some major issues. You're going to have to unload the entire tank to relieve the water pressure, and by the time you get that done, you might have 50 or 60 gallons on the floor. I didn't have any leaks in mine, but I still like to do that just to be cautious, because this tank is big enough. I'm not getting it through any of the doors. There's no way for me to get it outside to do a proper test. So you can see it's holding water without any issues. The next thing I'm going to be doing on this is going to be draining it back down and filling in the background. That'll be on the next video so that this one doesn't get too incredibly long. Hope you found some of this useful, and we'll see you next time.
Do you want me to stop taping yet?
Huh? I'm gonna be done with this crawl thing in a second. Jesus Christ. Ow, ow. That's obviously gonna get cut.